Reiju into Red Green Oden. This is Saturday morning locals here in the round 3 here. Currently undefeated with Reiju, going into an undefeated Oden here. Normally, I'm not very afraid of this matchup, but I'm playing Reiju. Reiju does not have a lot of interaction, especially when it comes to 5-cost characters, which is Oden's sweet spot. We're going to activate stage, see 3 ungrabbables here, and unfortunately going to throw all those on the bottom. We're digging hard. We're trying to find some answers here. We're going to end up playing out a Kaya from hand to draw 2, discard 2. We're going to go ahead and throw out the pudding and the judge here. And yeah, no, I need to find my puzzle pieces, right? We've got some of the combo here. We ended up going second. Opponent decided to go first, as I think first is like the best curve for Oden. Oden plays a lot of 5-drops. If you don't know Oden's leader ability, when he attacks with 1 Dawn attached, if he's got a Land of Wano character with a cost of 5 or more on the field, his leader becomes a 6k leader for the entire turn cycle. Opponent's going to go ahead and just swing 7. I'm just going to gladly take that, as I'm trying to search for any combo pieces here, and we're going to go up to 4 Dawn here. Going to potentially spin the wheel on the stage here, though not really sure what I'm going to pitch. Likely going to give away the chopper at this point. And try to find a big Ichiji. Unfortunately, we do not find a big Ichiji, but we're happy to grab one of the siblings here. And we're going to grab Niji here. Still missing a lot of my combo here. This ultimately is a combo deck, right? So I need to see my combo pieces, need to see the unsuited as well as the suited up versions of the Vinsmoke family to ensure that I can power them out at a Dawn discount here. And we're going to end up going 0. We're going to go... Kaya into Momonosuke. If you didn't know, characters with 0 power can attack each other, and opponent did not decide to give up any cards from hand. I would have loved to see a card come from hand here, but my opponent decides not to do that and just going to show me a 2k. And we're going to still play out the Portia here, just more of a waiting room play, and we end up seeing nothing to grab, as well as bottoming the Ichiji that likely we would have been able to use stage 1 next turn. And we're just going to... before we pass, make sure we draw a card here. That Searcher is going to be great for next turn. I know from playing against this deck, this is a guy at my locals that plays this deck pretty often. I have been matched up into him pretty often, but typically when I'm playing decks that are a little more interactive. But I know for a fact that Red Green Oden does not run really any removal. And so I know if I just throw out a Ichiji there, I know it's going to stick around for my next turn. My opponent just plays out an Izo. Izo is going to attach 1 Dawn to my lead and then make his lead a 6k. Izo is one of the best cards in the Oden deck, as Izo has an ability that allows you to turn any card from your hand into a 2k counter here. So we're going to end up having to play around that potentially, as Oden himself allows... in addition to his normal effect, he also turns all counterless cards that are Land of Wano into 1k counters. So Oden's just going to have counters out the wazoo here. Going to end up playing activating stage to pitch the Ichiji that we grabbed off the rip, and then go ahead and use the Searcher to try to find some more stuff here. I'm going to go ahead and look through the yard. We ended up seeing that we had a 4-cost Reiju that we've already discarded at some point, and we're going to end up putting the baby Reiju in hand here. And now we're set up. We're looking good here. So we are able to potentially Portia into this again, but I think right now we're going to go for more of the card advantage here, as Red Green Oden can go potentially pretty fast. And knowing this specific deck here, my opponent does run Kid Killers, and I am already at 2 life, so I really need to play a little more passive here. So we're going to end up grabbing the Reiju here to pick up a pile of Reijus to try to find as much counter as possible, to ensure that we can kind of stay alive as my opponent's just kind of beating face here. Gonna go ahead and activate little Ichiji here. Gonna go ahead and give minus 2,000 there, and then I think what we're gonna do is likely set this up to swing like 7k, 6k, 6k, because my opponent is currently a 6k lead as per the leader effect here. We're gonna go 7k at lead. Opponent could give me a 2k. They could also activate Iso's ability. Instead, they decide not to, because they know there's gonna be a few other attacks coming in his way as well. Gonna be another 6k from my leader here, and then likely another 6k from one of my bodies on field. So opponent does, 6Ks are pretty easy for my opponent to counter out of, especially being a 6k lead, as he can just show me any card without counter, which turns into a 1k, which he just did. He's going to go ahead and send 6 more at lead here. Opponent could just go ahead and show me another card from hand, which makes Oden kind of hard, right? So, I mean, Oden, if they basically see what they need, they can just easily counter out of a bunch of these little pings with just cards without counter. So that's what makes Oden's ability pretty cool, right? Is you can just exchange bricks out, right? And nobody likes bricks in hand, but to turn those bricks into 1Ks is pretty great. Opponent here on the 7 Dawn turn. Opponent's going to go ahead and activate, go ahead and play out a Nami. Nami that's the one that attaches Dawn, so he's going to easily be able to continue to keep his leader a 6k leader without committing any Dawn that isn't already rested here. Opponent's going to activate Momonosuke. Momonosuke is going to look at the top 5, try to find something cool. Going to find another Izo here. Opponent is only at 4 Dawn for the rest of the turn, so we're not going to see that Izo come out just yet, but you know what that means. It means my Kaya's got something to swing into, so you best believe that Kaya's going to swing into that Momonosuke again. Try to rack up the kill count here. Kaya's already got one hand bloody. Time to get the second one here. Opponent's going to go ahead and activate using Nami's effect to take this lead up to a potential 7k leader on swing, which could be used to threaten my Ichiji, but I have so many cards in hand. I'm going to go out of my way to ensure that I protect my board here. My opponent could also potentially swing 11 into it with the Izo here, which is pretty scary. That does eat up a lot of my hand, but I do manage to have a few 2Ks in hand, at least 3 at this point. So he's going to go ahead and attach 1. Just going to go for a safe attack, 8k into 5k. I'm going to let that happen. And then he's going to go ahead and go 7k, and I think that 7k is going to go into lead here. And I'm going to show him a 2k and a 1k. And then my opponent's going to play out he's going to play out a blocker. This is a 3 cost 4,000 counter, or a 4,000 power blocker here, which is a good target to clean up with Niji here. But unfortunately, because normally it's like a really great pickup because you're putting non-counter in his hand, but Oden is able to turn it into a 1k here. We could just keep going on the Reiju train, just keep drawing cards, as we do have the Porsche to put into play as well, but we do need to go down a few cards in hand here, as if we play the Reiju out, we're still going to be at 6 cards in hand, which will not allow me to proc Reiju's ability. So we do need to kind of deal with that here. We're going to go ahead and play out the Porsche. Porsche is going to be able to throw potentially 2 cards out of our hand here. Go ahead and do Porsche's effect. Look at the top 5 by minusing a Dawn. We end up finding a Chopper and a Porsche. We're going to grab the Chopper here, as kind of keeping our life somewhat stable is pretty important at this point. And then we're going to play out the Ichiji from hand here. Let's see here. We do remember to draw Alpha Leader, which is pretty awesome. Going to pick up another Ichiji. That's the 3rd one we've seen. And then likely we're going to activate Ichiji's effect to discard here. And unfortunately, due to the sequencing, and that's the first time you'll see me slap the card reader. This has been the card stand. This has been a hard deck to play with a card stand, I'm going to be honest. Because you're like constantly going through your yard. So I haven't played a lot of decks that like constantly care about their yard, like they're trash like this one does. So this is my first time playing with a card reader, kind of blocking that. So funny enough, this is the first time I've hit it. So I don't think my opponent was paying attention. So we're gonna go ahead and just start with a 7k. I think that 7k is going into, so it's actually the Izo is a minus 2k, so it's a 5k off of Ichiji's ability. Gonna go ahead and just meet a block here. We're gonna go 7 into 5 again. Opponent could give me 2 cards because they could proc Izo's ability. The Izo's ability by itself would just allow them to give them 2 cards. Right? So Izo would minus 2,000 power by causing my opponent to discard a card, and then they show me a 1k. Though my opponent's hand's getting pretty small, and you know, in One Piece, if your hand is tiny, you lose games. That's just kind of how it works, because there's not a lot of strategy. Once your hand gets pretty low, your opponent can pretty easily map it out. So opponent's, I think, just not going to give me 2 cards and just going to end up letting it go. And then Kaya's getting vicious again. Kaya's going to go right into the Momonosuke. Double kill. All right, Kaya's 2-0 right now on the battlefield. Cleaning up little kids. Oh man, I love attacking zero power characters into 0 power characters. We're going to send 6k lead here, as opponent is a 6k lead. Opponent still only has 3 cards in hand, so they could give me a card and then they go down to 2 cards, and then I'll swing again. We're gonna swing another 6k. Opponent is likely here gonna give me something. Ends up giving me a 1k from hand off that counterless Yamato. And gonna go back to my opponent here. My opponent is going up to 9 Dawn, but my opponent's kind of lacking in the board department right now, as I've been able to clean up his Izo. I do recall that he has another Izo in hand, so likely he's going to play it out again. But honestly, I'm feeling pretty confident going into this turn. Next turn, I could play out another Reiju. If he cleans up one of my Ichijis, which I'm honestly might allow him to do, because I do have the 4-drop Ichiji in my hand to be able to just get it back out. So opponent's going to go ahead and Gum Pistol away my Porsche, kind of cleaning up something he can't attack into. He played an Izo. Izo's going to attach one to lead, and then my Nami's going to attach another to lead, and now opponent is going to likely swing 8k into something. Likely that 8k is going to go into my Reiju, and I'm probably just going to let that happen, as I'm not too upset about that going. As long as I somewhat keep my board, right? As long as I keep my 7ks around to keep contesting with my opponent's life without me having to commit too much Dawn, right? 7k going into 6k still requires my opponent to at least use a 2k from hand to get out of it, or at least 2 cards. So likely here, opponent's just going to go 8k into Reiju, or they could also go 8k face. If they do that, I might be more inclined to potentially counter out of it, but my hand is getting pretty tiny, and I wouldn't mind actually countering out of it because it does allow me to more easily allow Reiju to come into play here and draw me some more cards here. Opponent's going to send 8k into Reiju. I could just counter out of it if I really wanted to, but I think we're just going to let it go as I don't want to give up too much of my hand at this point. I am still kind of playing on the back foot. I did just minus myself a bunch of Dawn. We're going to go ahead and go to my turn, and we pick up another Ichiji here. This is going to be pretty brutal as I'm going to be able to keep swinging in here. We don't have the Porsche, so I can't go Porsche into Ichiji, but that Ichiji is going to be a nice card to cycle off of my stage. I think first we're going to go ahead and just send 7 at lead here. My opponent only has 2 cards in hand. Opponent's going to counter up to 8. We're going to go 7 lead again. Opponent's just going to take it, and we're going to go at 6 lead. Opponent only has 2 cards in hand. They could give me a card. They could also activate the leader ability, or the Izo's ability, so I do have to think about that as I continue here. Opponent's just going to counter out of it, and we're going to play, likely what we're going to do is just play the Ichiji here, and if not, we just like play the Chopper and play the Reiju. But I think we've just still got too many cards in hand at this point, so we're going to play out the Ichiji. Ichiji -1. We're going to, yep, there we go. Make sure we grabbed a card off of the -1. And we're going to swing another 7k into lead here. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. They could activate Izo's effect, but I do think they want to keep that card in hand up at this point, because otherwise they're just going to be pretty low on resources here. Opponent's going up to 10 Dawn here. That last card my opponent kept in his hand must be pretty important likely here, but I do have to be a little concerned. I don't have any blockers up. Yes, my opponent could try to go pretty hard for face, but I do still have at least, what is that, 1, 2, that's 4k plus another 8k. I've got 8k counter in hand, so I'm likely going to be able to survive his turn. Opponent's going to go ahead and play out a Yamato. That card's frightening, but that card was more frightening like 5 turns ago. If my opponent played that on their 5 Dawn turn, I think I would have been shitting bricks likely, as that card is double strike and banish, or double attack and banish. Opponent's going to go ahead and go 8k into Niji. I'm letting him do it. But my opponent's going to go ahead and go 9k into my other Niji, and I'm just going to go ahead and counter out of it here. As honestly, I don't really know why I did that. I could have protected both, but I think honestly I only need 1 to do the job anyways. Opponent's going to go ahead and show me 2 2ks, which is going to allow him to get out of it, but I'm going to be able to swing another one and finish the game here. And opponent is unfortunately out of there, and so that could have been scary, especially if my opponent showed me the Yamato first, as I was kind of stumbling early game, and that could have really sealed the deal. But yeah, that's the game. If you enjoyed this type of content, definitely subscribe and like the video to let me know that you want to see potentially more Reiju or more decks of specific caliber. With that in mind, have a good day.